Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us as we march our way into springtime. You know, yeah, springtime officially starts here in, a couple of days, depending on when you're listening to this show. I can tell you springtime's here for a lot of reasons, including my allergies are are kicking up a little bit early this year. But you know me and the red-winged blackbirds. I have this weird relationship with those things. I love the sound of them. And everywhere I go now, I'm hearing red-winged blackbirds. And that really lets me know that springtime is certainly here, or will be very, very soon. The longer days, I love these longer days. It gives us more time to get outside and have some fun, doesn't it? Fishing right now across the state is really starting to heat up. Steelhead action in the North Country on the west side of the state. Steelhead are coming into the rivers. You get the resident population of fish that are in there, and that's providing a lot of great action. Walleye, of course. Walleye season. Normally this time of year, I'm thinking about the Detroit River, the St. Clair River, because that is a world-class springtime walleye fishery. And when you talk about urban fisheries, that Detroit River fishery is a gem. Where can you go to fish in a downtown area and look around and see tall buildings and people and buses and vehicles and all kinds of things like that, and see a river full of thousands and thousands of boat chasing big, beautiful springtime walleye? Our walleye fishing here in this state is it's world-class. It's second to none. And you know, a lot of times you'll see people, the naysayers on social media, of which there are so many. You'll see pictures of people holding up these big Detroit River walleye. And immediately the uneducated people jump on them and say, oh, no, you shouldn't keep those fish. You know, we need those fish for spawning. And if it was a northern Michigan lake or a northern Michigan river, I would say absolutely. You know, release those big spawn-filled females to go and let them do their thing and procreate and make more walleye. But when you've got a fishery like Lake Erie, Lake St. Clair, the Detroit River, even the biologists will tell you it doesn't make a biological impact, a negative impact on that resource. So be a little bit less judgmental, if you would, when you see people holding up those big fish. Also this year, what really has my attention, for the first time in recent history, the Saginaw River is open to walleye fishing year-round as well. Now, that does not extend up into the Tittabawassee or the tributaries. It extends to the Center Road Bridge, which is the Center Street Bridge, which is the first bridge downstream from Wicks Park, if I remember right. That is now open during what was traditionally a closed season. And in that area, the same regulations as Saginaw Bay, 13-inch fish and 8 fish. I find this interesting because that river, that part of the river, was closed for many, many years to walleye fishing under the heading of a spawning closure to protect those spawning fish. So what I'm curious to see, several things. Number one, how hard will that resource get hit this spring? Will it look like a Detroit River? Will there be lots and lots of boats, lots of people out there chasing those big fish in this 6-week period before the traditional walleye season opens up? Will they get into big fish like they do down in the Detroit River? And what will biologists think at the end of the season? Was it a success? Was this experiment something that they wish they would not have done? Or will it just be another great springtime outdoor recreational opportunity for anglers here in Michigan? We'll talk more about that in the second hour of this week's show. Had a fun event last weekend. I was able to go to the Michigan Conservation Officers Association annual dinner. That's always a lot of fun. I get a chance to see a lot of my friends. A lot of my friends now are retired. They're old retired game wardens at this point. So it was nice to catch up with them. Also nice to meet a lot of the newer officers that are now out in the field. I think the job of conservation officer is a really unique and, in my opinion, a very respected job. It's one of those jobs where a lot of the people who end up in that position have dreamed of being a conservation officer or a game warden since they were a little kid. I think it's a pretty cool job. I was a VCO, a volunteer conservation officer, for many years back in the day, as they say it. That program is no longer in existence. But I have a lot of friends who are retired and current wardens, and it was a lot of fun. Speaking of events, coming up this Wednesday now, the 22nd, we're doing another Wednesday Night Live in the field. This one will be in West Branch at the Lumberjack Restaurant, the Forward Corporation Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. Call 989-343-0892. I don't know if by the time you hear this show we will have any openings left, but if you want to join us, I would encourage you, 989-343-0892. Doors open at 5:30. The live stream starts at 7. A lot of great giveaways. We're going to give away a Rapid River knife, a skinning knife, to somebody joining us there that night. Paul Phillips, one of the best extreme long-range shooters in the world, a good friend of mine, will join us that night. You'll have a chance to talk with Paul. You'll have a chance to see the rifle that he set the new world record with, a 4-mile shot. The bullet was in the air 23 seconds. The earth had rotated from the time he pulled the trigger until the bullet hit the target. That's how long this shot is. He will be there. You'll have a chance to pick his brain. Ted Harpham of Dart and Archery will be there. Sherry Harpham of Freakin' Pickles will be there. We'll give away some Freakin' Pickles certificates as well. Rich Krazan of Michigan-based Killer Food Plots will join us. This will be your chance to talk with Rich, pick his brain about the upcoming food plot season. He will have some samples to give away as well. And Michigan Brand. We're going to have some Michigan Brand products to give away, too. My good friend Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand can't join us that day because he'll be fishing for jumbo perch on Grand Traverse Bay. Nick, that's a pretty good excuse. You are forgiven, but thank you for the offer of having some Michigan Brand to give away. Also, Wednesday Night Live, now our regular Wednesday Night Lives, now through Easter, and we kind of, I don't know how this got away from us, but we're getting a late start on the ham for the holidays for the Lenten season, but we're going to make up for it. And so we're going to give away Michigan Brand hams now, right on through Easter, to somebody watching our Wednesday Night Live shows. Those are Wednesday nights, obviously. I start at 7 o'clock on my social media outlets and would love to have you join us there. What else? Coming up next weekend, if you're in the Port Huron area, stop by and see me for the WPHM Home Sport and Garden Show. That's at the Blue Water Convention Center. I'll be there. I'll be there from noon till 2. Stop by and say hi. What else is going on? I don't want to get into this, and I won't get into it too much. But there is a renewed effort at the federal level and now the state level, which really concerns me. Gun control issues. Again, that's a topic for a show of a different format, but let me just say I'm very concerned about this. I'm very disturbed by this. This term gun violence, curbing gun violence. Violence is violence. There is no such thing, in my opinion, as gun violence. Violence can be perpetrated by a gun, a knife, a baseball bat, a fist. Violence is violence. Violence is caused by violent people, by people who are mentally deranged, by criminals. Putting stricter laws or listen, here's an earth-shattering concept. Why don't we just enforce the gun laws that we have? But no, that doesn't fit the narrative, does it? Like I said, that's a whole topic for a different show. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show after the break, Captain Jerry Link of Originator Charters in St. Joe will talk about the phenomenal early season open water coho bite on southern Lake Michigan. We might also talk about a little river steelhead fishing as well. Then Sarah Topp of the Michigan Wildlife Council will wrap up the hour. In hour number 2, Captain Bobby Sullivan of Icebreaker Charters. You might remember Bobby. He's the guy whose client caught a new state record king salmon 2 years ago on Lake Michigan, but he's also an East Michigan walleye guy. He's going to talk about fishing the Saginaw River. Then Jason Gostiaux, who is a DNR Fisheries biologist, will talk about the reasoning behind keeping the river open. Does he have any concerns? How closely will they be watching it? The Ask Avery segment deals with how did this whole walleye fishery come about? How was it resurrected? I've been an observer of this since the beginning. I can talk more about that. And then in our third hour, we're going to switch gears and talk about hunting, turkey hunting, in particular bow hunting, with Charlie Wiltse of Primal Tree Stands, and of course wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar will wrap it all up. This time Dave doesn't have a recipe. I want to talk with him in general about the concept of cooking fish and wild game. How is it different than, beef or pork or anything else like that? We'll pick his brain. He's been doing it for a long, long time. My name is Mike Avery. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I'm also quite active on social media. Feel free to join me there. And my email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Send me your comments, your questions, your criticisms. The address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. We're going to be here for the next 3 hours. Glad you're along with us. Hope you can stick around. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM and north of the bridge in Newberry 1450 WNBY. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based Killer Food Plots. The food plot planting season is just around the corner, and I would recommend you take a serious look for your food plot needs to Killer Food Plots. KillerFoodPlots.com is the website, KillerFoodPlots.com. Rich Krazan of Killer Food Plots will be joining us at our Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack Restaurant next Wednesday night, or this Wednesday night, coming up in West Branch. You'll have a chance to talk with him then. This time of year, though, a lot of people are thinking about fishing. Man, we have some great fishing in this state. When I think about the different fishing opportunities, it's world class. But right now, a lot of people are looking at southern Lake Michigan, the early season open water trolling bite. Captain Jerry Link of Originator Charters has been out there. He's been on that bite. He's been getting fish, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jerry, welcome back. How are you?
Great, thanks.
Are you on the water today, Jerry, or what's your status today?
I'm not on the water today. I'm talking to you. Well, that was yesterday.
I appreciate that. Tell me about this early season bite.
Well, it's fantastic, to be honest. This season seems to be one of our better ones starting out. Lots of limit catches, fast catches, catching the coho fairly close to shore, basically from the pier heads all the way to the south. They're all the way past the Cook plant.
And it's easy fishing too, isn't it?
It is. It doesn't get any easier than right now. It's you're seeing people out there basically in anything that floats. So it's you don't need a lot of sophisticated equipment to catch these fish, and or a big big tackle box. Pretty much if it's orange and black or red and black in body baits right now, it's working really well.
And these, you say, primarily coho, right, Jerry?
Correct. Yep.
Do you ever get into steelhead or browns or an early season king at all, or is it just about exclusively coho?
It's primarily just coho salmon, but we do occasionally bump into a stray king or a steelhead at this time of year for sure. But the vast majority is the coho, and we call it browns. We get our bonus fish.
Bonus,
so
yep.
we don't get that many, but they're a bonus when we do catch them.
And so what's key right now? You're looking for water temp, the warmer the better?
Yeah, right now, those fish, the water's still pretty cold yet, so those coho are looking for the warmest water they can find, and they're also looking for bait, obviously, which there isn't much in the water, but they're real aggressive, and they're searching, and very easy to catch, typically.
So what depth of water? I mean, we're talking right up on shore like you'd troll for browns, or a little deeper?
Yeah, absolutely. Right up on shore, even, and as far out as 20, 25 feet or so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of guys along the shoreline. Our pier heads I haven't seen that many people on the piers catching coho like that in many years, and it's there's been pictures all over the internet of it, and looks like it's going to be a great year for them.
Well, and it is, as you say, a great time of year because you don't need the big boats. You don't need all the gear. I mean, you can go out there on the right day with a 16-footer, get your limit, and be back in a few hours.
Well, exactly. We were out just the other day, and I took my riverboat out. Of course, the conditions were perfect for that, and we had a 4-person limit before 9 a.m., so it was really good. So it's the way we like it. So actually, we're working on the lake boat. It's getting ready to go in soon here, and so once we get through this weather we got coming this weekend, I think it's going to be good. So
yeah, next week is looking pretty good.
Yeah, I should be out there right now. I didn't realize today was going to be that nice. There's boats out on the water right now fishing in St. Joe, and it looks like it's going to be a great day for it.
See, now you're making me feel bad. What these aren't big fish though, are they, Jerry?
No. These are your little spring jacks, we call them. Basically, we call them the filet mignon of the sea. They're full of the omega vitamins, and eating them, it's like candy. I mean, you just can't get enough of it, and they're good for you. So,
well, it's hard to imagine a better tasting fish than a coho, but you're not out there for the fight.
True, but that being said, though, I mean, they still give you a better fight than a walleye. Per se.
No, I mean, you had to throw that in there.
Not to dog the walleye, but I mean, they do. They spin around and they tug. I mean, I had a customer out the other day, and he couldn't believe it. He was pleasantly surprised that they gave him the fight they did.
What kind of tackle are you running? You could go real light line this time of year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, 10-pound test is fine. Yeah, nothing. Nothing heavy at all. So we're just using 10-pound mono, and then if you want, you can use fluorocarbon, but it's not necessary this time of year. But yeah, and just running 25 to 50-foot leaders, and of course running the offshore. You can run the mini boards, or you can run your bigger ones. It depends, but I like to run the smaller boards this time of year.
The little, what some people call them, the awesome crappie boards, the little orange ones.
Yeah.
Or no, are they yellow? I think they're yellow.
They're yellow.
Yeah,
they're yellow. They're yellow. Mm-hmm.
Well, tell me how you set those up, because I find that very interesting.
We just put them on, run our leaders out, and then maybe 25 to 50 pulls, and then we just put a speed bead on, and make sure that so that if they do release, that they'll just go back and it won't hit the fish in the head. So yeah, 50-foot leader. You'll have a speed bead on there. You can pick them up in any of the local tackle shops. Real simple thing to put on your line, and so when if the board does trip, it'll just slide down and it won't knock the fish off. So we keep it about 2 or 3 foot above the bait.
Any riggers, any divers, flat lines?
You can. When I got my big boat out, we'll run the full gamut, and we'll just put the riggers, maybe a foot or two down into the water. A lot of times you can still see the bait, but it doesn't seem to bother the coho. They're real curious. They'll come right up and hit them in the prop wash, and then divers typically will run one diver aside, obviously, because we're fishing so close to shore, and we'll just have it set real shallow. Well, once again, you can see the diver in the water, and you're still catching them. and then we'll run, as many as, it depends. And the other day I didn't have to run more than 4 boards, and I mean, they were snapping so fast you couldn't even barely keep the line set. So
wow.
But when things slow down, then we stick a few more boards out there, and if provided we have enough people on board, and yeah, a few more lines, and it's a lot of fun. It doesn't get any easier than this. I miss it. It was really fun to get back out there and catch those fish.
Does speed make a difference at all, or are these things just kamikazes? They don't care.
It's not as critical as what you're probably thinking there on the speed. Obviously, we like to go slow. I don't run a bag or anything on my river boat, but if you got a bigger boat, it'd be a good idea to throw the bag in. But yeah, they're not as speed sensitive as like later on in the summer. That's for sure. But try to go as slow as you can. 2.5 miles an hour is fine. I've caught them at 3 mile an hour, no problem too. But so yeah, it's like I said, they can swim pretty fast, and they're pretty aggressive. If there's bait in the water and there's fish around, they're going to hit it.
And they're not boat shy at all.
No, not the coho. No, not typically. No.
All body baits right now, Jerry. No spoons.
Right now, that's what I think you could catch them on just about anything. But that's what I run starting out in the year is all body baits, and then as the water temperatures warm up, then we'll switch over to the coho dodgers and the peanut flies, and then orange ones, and then we'll move into the spoons. But yeah, and I'm not saying you couldn't catch them on them right now, but that's just historically, that's how I was taught to do it, and it works. So if it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
The J11s and the red and black thin fins they're money right now. So.
Yeah, if something's been working for years, there's a reason it's been working, and why mess around with it?
Right. But I know guys that are catching them on shad wraps, and they, anything that can dive a little bit, they're catching them. So,
how long will this fishery hold up? How long before you got to switch to different tactics, different fish?
Well, that's all weather dependent, right? The faster the water warms up, the faster the fish start to move on, and so right now we're fortunate because we're getting these colder nights and colder mornings, and we've had some north blows, which kind of keeps them pushed back down our way. If the water temp warms up fast, and those fish they'll keep moving. So we were afraid that by the time we get the lake boats in, those fish should be offshore. But these colder days and mornings we've been having, it's keeping them around, which we're glad to have that. So it's all weather dependent on that. And
why is it that you guys, your fishery heats up, the action heats up before the ports to the north? Again, is it water temp? Your water warms up earlier?
Yeah, and we're the southern end of the lake, so the southern basin is not far from us, and so yeah, those fish they're in the southern end of the lake all winter, and because that's the warmest part, so that's why we get first crack at them. So, but I have heard some reports of guys actually catching a few even as far north as Saugatuck. Not a lot, but a few, which that's almost unheard of. So that's what was getting scary when we were hearing reports of fish being caught up there. We were like, oh no, we might lose our fish quick, but so far they're sticking around, so we're happy.
Good for you. We're talking with Captain Jerry Link of Originator Charters out of St. Joe. His website, originatorcharters.com, originatorcharters.com. Going to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. Cap, can you stick around a few more minutes?
Sure.
I appreciate that. Captain Jerry Link of Originator Charters. I've talked to Jerry before here on the radio show. Also, I've had him on the Offshore Tackle podcast as well. He is an offshore guy, and he mentioned those little offshore mini boards. Very, very versatile product. But this springtime coho fishery on southern Lake Michigan is a riot. If you haven't done it, I would encourage you to check it out. As Jerry said, you don't need a big boat. I mean, a little boat, throw it on the trailer, make a little bit of a road trip if you're somewhere else in the state, and drive on down there, head on down there. Pick your days, right? You don't want to go out there in a 16-footer in a 30-mile-an-hour west wind, but if you're smart about it, pick your days. Also, if you are a pier fisherman, you don't even have to have a boat this time of year. Jerry mentioned the pier fishermen are doing very well also. This is just a great time of year to to get out and do some fishing. St. Joe is a beautiful port, and Jerry Link of Originator Charters is a very good captain down there. We'll take a break. Lots more coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM, and north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by, the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan tracker and Angler Quest and Polar Craft headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Talking to the guys at Linwood Beach, the ramp is open. And as you are hearing the broadcast version of the show, I don't know if they're launching boats to troll the bay or not. If not, that will happen very, very soon. I've had some reports of people sneaking out around the ice and getting some fish. So that fishery is about ready to bust wide open. But why wait? Right now, you can go to St. Joe and fish springtime coho, like Captain Jerry Link of Originator Charters has been doing. Originatorcharters.com, originatorcharters.com. Jerry, how long have you been fishing that water down there?
Well, I've been fishing St. Joe since I was a little boy. I started in the middle 70s with my grandfather, and so I got my captain's license in 1992, so it's been a while.
So how has that fishery, I mean, is it like the northern part of the lake where you've seen the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, or has it been pretty consistent?
We're real fortunate. We've got a phenomenal fishery in St. Joe, and, you know, it's I think it's unlike anywhere else. To be able to catch fish year-round like we do, we're real fortunate. Starting out in the spring and all the way until the late fall when we put the boats away, we're catching fish, and I think out of all the ports, I think we're got to be one of the top, if not the top.
Your water depth is interesting. You don't have a shelf, you don't have a drop-off, you don't have deep water close to shore at all, do you?
No, we don't. It's it just gradually gets deeper. It's like a bowl, but sandy bottom for the most part, with some patches of clay. But no, we do not have the shelves and all the traditional things that they have up north. But so our structure, we always say, is water temp. So we pay close attention to the water temp. So,
is there an ideal temp you're looking for, or just whatever the warmest is you can find this time of year?
For the coho, obviously the warmer the better. You know, the lake is already, the other day it was already, along the shoreline was already 40 degrees. I'm sure it's dropped back down just a little bit since these cold nights. I know the river yesterday was about 37. So, yeah, basically the warmest water you can find. That's why the power plants, a lot of people go down to around the Cook Plant area because they're getting the warm water discharge over in, the southern end, even further down around the steel mills. They're catching them down there around there because of the warm water. So,
What about the river fishery for steelhead? Are you done with the river now for the season?
No, we're still running some trips on the river. I fished the river yesterday and the day before. So the fortunate thing we have this time of year is if the lake is too rough, there's still steelhead in the river. I had a female yesterday, and her eggs were still tight. We've caught a few that were spawned out, but more often than not, the fish we've been catching have been still have tight skeins in them. So.
Were you able to fish all winter long, Jerry?
Yes. Oh yeah. That's one of the great things about our river. Up at Berrien Springs, there, that the dam is up there, and the water flows so heavy up there that it doesn't get a chance to freeze there.
Do you ever? A stupid question. Do you ever get coho up in the river?
Yes, actually, I've caught them actually right on the lower part of the river. Absolutely, I've caught them on days when we couldn't get out. it's not uncommon with spawn to catch them around the bottom, just like steelhead.
And I know the St. Joe as a sleeper river for walleye. Do you target walleye? Do you ever get incidental walleye?
We do. I don't. I mean, I will take people fishing for walleye, but yeah, we'll accidentally catch them even steelhead fishing sometimes, and that's not uncommon. So
I bet
as well as northern, we got quite a few fish we can catch down here. So we've got a really good smallmouth population down here too. So. And
remind me, does the St. Joe River have a shipping channel at all?
It does. We are considered a shipping port, and we do have. They bring in salt, gravel, and powdered cement. So
you got some deep water there in the river if you want to try that too.
Correct. Yeah.
Jerry, it sounds to me like you got just about everything going there in St. Joe.
Like I said, we're pretty fortunate, Mike. It's real fortunate and lucky to grow up here, and I've been a part of this fishery for a long time.
Well, Jerry, I appreciate your time. Sorry to keep you off the water today, but good fishing to you.
No problem, Mike. You have a good one.
You as well. Captain Jerry Link of Originator Charters, his website, originatorcharters.com, originatorcharters.com. You can also find him on social media. St. Joe, a very, very interesting port and close to a lot of people. They get a lot of folks from Chicago coming up to fish that part of the state as well. Very, very cool. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, Sarah Topp. I first talked with Sarah when she was at MUCC these days. She's a member of the Michigan Wildlife Council, helping to promote their Here for Generations campaign, their website, hereformioutdoors.org. When I check in with Sarah, last time I talked with somebody from the MWC, they were talking about maybe changing the campaign, more of a direct focus on hunters and anglers. Well, we'll see what's going on there and more. And in hour number 2, Captain Bobby Sullivan and Fisheries biologist Jason Gostiaux coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. The Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives. You know I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now, as I always do. High-quality, handmade knives by craftsmen in the UP. If you get a chance, check out their showroom on US 2 just east of Rapid River. If you can't make it up there, go to the website rapidriverknifeworks.us. That's rapidriverknifeworks.us. We're giving away a Rapid River skinning knife at our Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack Restaurant next Wednesday night. I want to turn our attention now to a group that I have been working with and supporting for several years now, the Michigan Wildlife Council. And their goal is to promote the role of hunting and fishing and trapping here in the great state of Michigan. Sarah Topp is a member of the Michigan Wildlife Council, and she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Sarah, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, listen, it's a real pleasure. So tell me about the Michigan Wildlife Council. Last time we had somebody on, there was talk of changing maybe the focus of the campaign a little bit and bringing hunters and anglers more directly into the campaign. Any movement in that area?
Yeah, so I can provide some updates. I'm fairly new to the council, so bear with me here as I'm...
No, not at all.
I don't have probably as much knowledge as the last person did, but there was a statewide survey conducted in December and January for insights on how the 2022 campaign performed, targeting the Southeast Michigan area, where the campaign is focused on reaching non-hunters and non-anglers. And since then, we're seeing pretty significant increases in knowledge related to the economic impact of hunting and fishing, which, of course, is the goal of the Michigan Wildlife Council. So a majority of those Michiganders strongly approve hunting and fishing, which is great progress to see. 89% of Michiganders agree hunting is an important part of Michigan's culture and heritage. And on the economic front, we've had double-digit increases in Michiganders' knowledge, acknowledging the importance of hunting and fishing industry since the start of the council's work.
So you're
And today,
so you're doing a good
4 in
job.
5 Michiganders. What's that?
So you're doing a good job. People are listening.
Yeah, we're seeing positive results. So much so that in some of our recent research that's been done, I'd say Michigan would be a priority example for other states to be following.
Well, and congrats to you for being named to the council. I think that's a very prestigious position, but your background has been in wildlife and conservation for a long, long time now.
It has. Thank you. I appreciate that. Last time we talked, I was working with Michigan Unit Conservation Clubs, managing their on-the-ground program, and since then I've done quite a bit of different conservation roles and landed with Trout Unlimited. I
remember that, yeah, and I was going to bring up Trout Unlimited. Your role there is what, Sarah?
I'm the Upper Peninsula Stream Restoration Manager, so I manage our projects across the entire UP. Not a bad spot to be.
Not a bad spot to be at all. And there in the UP, everybody hunts or fishes or traps. And I hear this from people all the time, people who travel in our circles. They say, why is this important? But as I'm finding out, Sarah, it's not the people in the North Country. It's not the people in the UP. It's the people in the southern part of the state that we need to reach because they are the ones that have the control when it comes to the ballot.
Yes, it is. And in my first meeting with the council in November, I was not super surprised to see those numbers in the UP being pretty positive for acknowledging the benefits of hunting and fishing in Michigan, but the fact that a very centralized portion in the southeast region boasted those numbers for the whole state of it being negatively representing their knowledge of benefits of hunting and fishing in Michigan was pretty astounding to me.
I think you will be a great addition to the Wildlife Council. Congrats on that, and I'll look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
All right. Sarah Topp of the Michigan Wildlife Council, the website here for mioutdoors.org. That's here for mioutdoors.org. The campaign is called Here for Generations. When they first announced that campaign, I thought that is the perfect slogan, Here for Generations, because this outdoor lifestyle that is so important to so many of us has been around for generations. And I'll be honest, from a personal perspective, for the first time in my life, I can see a scenario where if we don't get involved, if people don't promote this, that we could be in danger of losing it. That's why I think groups like the Michigan Wildlife Council are so important because they're telling the non-participants, right? Look, at those of us who hunt and fish and shoot and trap, we get it. You've got us on one side, you've got the antis on the other, but you've got this 80% of people in the middle who just don't know. And they don't know because they didn't grow up in the lifestyle. They didn't have somebody to show them, somebody to tell them. So it's that 80% in the middle that we really need to reach because they are the people who will control the situation. They'll control the narrative. They will decide the future hunting and fishing issues as they hit the ballot. And the Michigan Wildlife Council is doing a great job in helping to educate those people. Again, the website is here for mioutdoors.org, here for mioutdoors.org. And a thank you to Sarah Topp for joining us. And again, congrats on being named to the council. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Bobby Sullivan, a fishing charter captain and a river guide. He spends the summer on Lake Michigan, fishing kings, the summer on Saginaw Bay, fishing walleye. Lately, he's been on the Saginaw River chasing walleye, a resource that just opened up this year during the closed season. So we'll pick his brain on that and more coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show, the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Probably made the point by now, haven't I? This is first and foremost a radio show, and I do think the best way to listen, if you can, is on your local AM or FM affiliate. There you get your local news, weather, sports. Maybe there's even a sale, a commercial, something you want to take advantage of. Plus, the broadcast stations get the content of the show before the podcast version is uploaded. Yes, there is a podcast version of the radio show. I've been doing a podcast version of the show for a long, long time. Podcasting is kind of, it's not a new form of communication at this point, but it's become very, very popular. And so I do make a podcast version of the radio show available. And if you can't listen on your local radio station, if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, or if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, it's nice to know there's a podcast out there. You can hear the podcast on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I put it on my Facebook page, Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Odyssey, and even on YouTube. Regardless of how you are hearing my voice, though, I do certainly appreciate it. Speaking of podcasting, though, before we move on, I also need to promote the podcasts that I do each month for some of my advertising partners, including Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Primal Outdoors, and Polar Craft Boats. And when we're done here in the studio recording this week's radio show, we will do this month's Polar Craft podcast with Captain Mike Downey talking about springtime walleye fishing on the Detroit and the St. Clair rivers. That, for many years, has been a big deal, a big draw to walleye anglers, not only across Michigan, but across the Midwest. This year, there's another option. There's something new out there. For the first time in many, many years, the Saginaw River is now open to walleye fishing during what used to be a closed season. It used to be a spawning closure. We'll talk more about that with a biologist, Jason Gostiaux, coming up here. But first, I want to talk with Captain Bobby Sullivan. You know Bobby. You know the name. He is a charter captain, Icebreaker Charters. IcebreakerFishingCharters.com is his website. 2 years ago, one of Bobby's clients caught a new state record king salmon out of, I think it was Manistee. That's when his name really became prominent. But Saginaw Bay walleye anglers know Bobby because he's also a captain on the bay. And this year, recently, he's been running the Saginaw River as well. So I thought this is a good chance to pick somebody's brain who has been out there. I have a lot of experience on that river, but it's been a long, long time. Bobby's out there. In fact, he's out there right now. He's got clients in the boat, and he's with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Bobby, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good. How about yourself, Mike?
Hey, I'm doing. Well, listen, it's a real pleasure. By the way, too, it was nice to see you at the Michigan Conservation Officers Association dinner. And it reminded me that, man, you're a guy who really came to prominence here recently. How is the world of chartering treating you since that all happened?
Oh, it's pretty good. I haven't missed a day in the last week and a half fishing. I've been fun fishing a little bit, running a couple steelhead charters. The last 5 days I've been on the Saginaw River here. One day I missed because I had a steelhead trip over on the Muskegon, but it's been really good. Can't complain.
And you actually have clients on the boat with you this morning, don't you?
I'm actually fun fishing with a couple buddies. It's the last day of the walleye season, for the upper river. We started up there this morning casting, which I've been doing the last couple days. We didn't hit any fish there. We just moved down to our first spot jigging, and we put 10 fish in the boat so far. So we put 10 keepers into the first 2 passes. We're going up right now to make another pass. So you might get some live action on some fish here in a minute.
Oh, I'm counting on it, Bobby. We're pretty famous here for when we have people on the river or on the big lake. They usually catch fish while we're talking to them, so you better get ready.
Yep. Yeah, and we only kept 5 of the fish. We threw a couple like the 15, 16 inches back. So we're going to keep plucking away at them.
So it's interesting this year, the Saginaw River above Center Street and up into Tittabawassee and the Cass, that will be closed as usual, but downstream of the Center Street Bridge, which is the first bridge downstream from Wicks Park, that's going to be open this year, and it hasn't been open in a long time. What do you expect, or what are we going to see out there, Bobby?
So, it's kind of an unknown for all of us right now. We don't know how the fishing's going to turn out. I think it's going to be good for another couple weeks. The one thing that might happen is all these fish might be in the upper river, whether it's the upper Saginaw or the Cass and the Tittabawassee to spawn. But once those fish are getting done spawning, we'll still have dropbacks coming down, and I'm really excited for April to be able to fish this river.
Do you think, is it going to be like a Detroit River fishery or not to that extent?
Probably not. Number-wise, it probably will be. Everyone I know yesterday that was down here in the lower river fishing, all the charter buddies I know had 32, 40 fish. We fished up above where you could only keep 5, and we ended up with our fish up there, and we were just casting the whole time while we were fishing. We didn't vertical jig, but we had some really nice fish. We had 2 25-inchers, a 26-incher, and a 27.5-incher.
Wow.
And probably the smallest fish we caught was maybe 20 inches. So, we were onto those big fish casting opposed to jigging. But my buddies down here got some really nice fish jigging also.
That 27-inch fish pre-spawn like this, how much did she weigh?
So we didn't weigh that one, but we got one earlier this year. Actually, my buddy won the shiver on the river with it. That fish was 27.5, and that fish weighed 7.4. So I think that fish that we caught yesterday was in that 7 to 8 pound range.
Tell me more about casting to these fish. That's more of a shallow water technique, isn't it?
Yeah, so we were casting in 6 to 7 foot of water. We were running 1/4-ounce jigs with paddle tails. We were running, yesterday we were using the Lunker City Grubsters. Color did not matter. White was pretty good. Pimp Daddy's another good color. But I did try a rip and wrap for a little bit. I actually had a fish on my first cast 2 days ago with it, and I never had another bite on that. But there's a little bit too much debris in here right now to run those. Every cast I was getting leaves on the hooks.
Sure. And what's the water color look like right now? Is it clearing up or still pretty muddy?
Oh, it's clearing up. It's looking really good right now. We have, I'd say right here, probably about 2 foot of visibility where we're fishing. We're fishing in between 675 and Milwaukee right now. And the water's cleaning up every day. It's going to get really good the next couple days down here. As long as the rain I think they're forecasting some rain this week, and we'll see what that does to the river.
Yeah, isn't it funny how springtime weather conditions can really screw up a river, whether it's for steelhead or for walleye?
Yeah, we could get a bunch of rain, and it might be tough fishing for a couple weeks here.
Yeah,
it was tough for a week or two when the turbidity got over 35. So if that happens again, everyone might be down in the Detroit River anyway fishing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Are you tipping those jigs with live bait at all?
We are not. We haven't used minnows at all. When I have trips, I'll bring minnows. But when we're just fun fishing out here, we're not running any bait at all.
Again, I'm fascinated by this casting. What are you, quarter casting and bouncing it back along the bottom, or swimming it, free swimming?
So quarter casting to the shore, and you're letting that jig hit bottom, and you're just lightly lifting up on the rod about a foot or two, and letting that jig free fall back to the bottom, and 95% of those fish will bite on that drop. So just working that jig slow, just kind of bouncing it off bottom, and the hardest part with it is finding fish. And, fishing like current breaks and anywhere where there's slow water.
Is there any correlation between finding steelhead and finding walleye? Do you learn anything from fishing steelhead that helps you out in the walleye rivers?
Not really. These walleyes in this river set in a lot of areas. We just caught a sheephead, and I just missed one. But sometimes in the high water it does. If there's a tree down creating a really nice current block, that would be an area to target. But in this open river down here, not really.
We're talking with Captain Bobby Sullivan of Icebreaker Charters, his website, icebreakerfishingcharters.com. Bobby, we've got to take a break. You can stay with us a few more minutes, can't you?
Yeah.
I'd appreciate that. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we will talk more with Captain Bobby Sullivan, again, of Icebreaker Fishing Charters. He is on the Saginaw River. The reason I have Bobby on is the Saginaw River now, as you are hearing this show, is open to fishing below the Center Street Bridge. That's the first bridge downstream of Wicks Park. It's open 8 fish, 13-inch size limit, 8 fish. And that's an area of the river that has been closed for several years. So there are a lot of people keeping a close eye on that water right now. As Bobby said, it's kind of an unknown. How is that fishery going to unfold? Are anglers going to flock to this area, or are they still going to go down to the Saginaw River? And what's Mother Nature have in store, right? That's the big question for everything we do in the outdoors. How is Mother Nature going to help? How is she going to cooperate? And when is she going to throw us a curveball? Because you know she will. Captain Bobby Sullivan of Icebreaker Fishing Charters, his website, icebreakerfishingcharters.com. My name is Mike Avery. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. We'll talk to you after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You've seen them on the water. You've talked about them with your friends. Is this the year you step up to the most exciting big water fishing machine in Michigan? Angler Quest pontoons are built for the die-hard angler, and they get better every year. Now they feature a sleeker design that opens up the You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS and north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM and 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry for more than 3/4 of a century. They continue to come up with new products, new manufacturing processes. Really an innovative company in northern Michigan. The website boning.com, that's boning.com. As I head into the springtime turkey woods bow hunting, I will have Boning products on my rig, and I would encourage you to check them out as well. The website boning.com, that's BOHNING, boning.com. Also, while you're online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head on over to IcebreakerFishingCharters.com. IcebreakerFishingCharters.com is the website of Captain Bobby Sullivan. Bobby is a full-time charter captain. He fishes king salmon on the Big Lake. He fishes steelhead in the rivers. He fishes walleye on Saginaw Bay. And now he's fishing walleye in the Saginaw River. He's out there right now. He's on the phone line with us. Bobby, any action during the break at all?
Yeah, we just put a 20-incher in the box right now. My buddy's dropping his line down right as soon as you started talking. He hooked the fish.
See, so, I am the walleye whisperer. It's the sound of my voice that attracts those fish, Bobby.
Keep talking.
So let's talk about jigging the Saginaw River. That is the most popular technique, right?
Yes, for sure. By far, everyone. I'd say 95% of the people jig. So in my mind, there's like 3 different ways you can fish it: jig it, troll it, or cast it.
And why jigging? Why jigging?
It's just always. It's normally always productive to put a good number of fish in the boat. Whereas trolling and casting, you might not put a big number in the boat, but the fish might be bigger that you're catching, just the way it is. But jigging is really preferred method for a lot of people, and it's easy to do. The hardest thing with jigging is to try and keep your line vertical, and running the trolling motor, you just try to chase your jig just to make it stand straight up and down when you're going down the river.
Jigging is productive, but it's also fun. There's nothing like having that rod in your hand when a fish hits.
Yes, and sometimes when we're jigging in that shallow water, that 7-8 foot, it's fun. You set the hook and those fish are right on the surface. I just missed one right there. See if they'll come back and bite.
That's because you're talking to me and you're not concentrating on what you're doing.
Yeah, running 2 rods and fishing. That's all right. We're just out here having a good time today.
Now, you said when you cast, the fish a lot of times will hit it on the drop. Is that the same thing with jigging?
It is. So a lot of times, new people won't feel them bite when they're taking the jig back to the bottom. For people that don't know, when we're jigging, we're sending the jigs down to the bottom. In each jig, we're making contact with the bottom, lifting it up about a foot, dropping it back down. There's different techniques. Some guys snap jig, some guys twitch it when it comes up. Some fish will bite when you're jigging it up, but you lift into a lot of fish that way. A lot of the fish that we do catch that actually bite on the drop when it almost gets to the bottom. And sometimes it's hard to distinguish if it's we just got another keeper, if it's bottom or a fish.
So what's a keeper? Anything over 15, or what you're looking at? What's a keeper right now in your mind?
Where we're at right now, fish can be 13 inches.
Okay.
But we're just keeping them over about 16 today because there's some nice fish. Hopefully, today if we get any big ones, we'll probably let them go with the group that I'm with. But we'll probably try to keep fish in that 16 to 22 inch range.
Now, when you're dropping this jig back to the bottom, is it on a tight line, or do you just drop it with no resistance at all?
I'll mix it up. Sometimes I'll drop it with no resistance, and other times I'll tight line it down, kind of nice and slow. So I will vary the way how I jig. And on all my rods, I have I'm running Suffix 832 for a braid. I'm running the high visibility line. That way you can also see the bite with that bright yellow line. Right. And you can see, I can look in the back of the boat and see if my clients are vertical, which is, that can make or break a good day jigging.
Sure. So if you're running that super line, do you have a mono lead on it?
Right now, so the water is still kind of dirty. We're just running straight braid right down to the jig. Once that water starts clearing up, I will put a mono, like a 10 or 12 pound fluorocarbon leader on it.
So what happens when you get a snag? Because there are a lot of snags in that river. Do you just straighten the hook out, or how do you get your jig back?
So that's the good thing with running straight braid. A lot of the times you just straighten the hook out. So I don't ever go upriver and try to get it out to mess up the flow of the boats coming down river. I don't have much luck getting the jig out that way, so I just point the rod tip right at it and pull back, and hopefully it bends that hook out.
And you said you're running two rods. People who haven't done it before, I think they're better off to start just with one and concentrate on that one.
Yeah, and some days when it's windy out, I'll just only fish one rod. That's about all I can handle with running the motor, trying to stay straight. But right now, the wind's just now starting to pick up. But we've been able to run two rods the whole morning each person. So it ups your chances on catching fish. Running two rods.
Sure. Boat control is absolutely critical, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is very critical. And I would say, for the average guy coming out here, if he can't keep a boat vertical, tries, keeping it vertical, maybe try casting or jigging on those windy days. You might be surprised. And try to find little flats that are anywhere from 7 to 14 foot and try running crankbaits. You could use deep diving shad wraps. You could use husky jerks. You can use bandits. When I troll on this river, I don't run any boards. I run two 12-foot rods off the side just to get them away from the boat, and I'll put two out the back of the boat and just kind of flatline like you would almost do for steelhead, but except instead of going downriver plugging for steelhead, you're going upriver for these walleyes. And I just put the bait over the side of the boat and make sure it's working pretty good. Most of the time, trolling upriver, I'm going about 0.4 to 0.6 doing that in the Saginaw here.
But you're letting the action of the lure determine your speed then?
Yes. Yeah. If that bait's really working hard against the current, slow down, because these walleyes just like that tight little wobble this time of year.
On your jigs, what size are you using?
So right now we're jigging with a 1/4 ounce jig. We're in 25 foot of water. Like I say, we can get away with it right now because it's not windy. We have really good boat control. If it starts getting windy and we're starting to lose that control, we'll bump up to a 3/8. very rarely will I run a half ounce on this river, but there's been times in dirty water, times in dirty water that I've needed to.
So is it more important to keep that contact with the bottom, or to use the lightest jig that you can?
I've always had better luck using the lightest jig I can as long as I'm vertical. Well, I know there's some guys that'll run half-ounce jigs the whole time and they get them. Everyone has their own preferred method. My preferred method is to go light as I can be.
So when you're fishing the lower stretches of the Saginaw, where you've got a shipping channel, are you fishing the channel, or are you off to the flats on the sides?
Right now, we're right on the edge of the channel. We're not up in the flats, but we're just fishing the edge. And, that might change throughout the day. We had a couple weeks ago, one day we were getting them on the flat, and we went to fish there the next day, and they weren't there, and they were actually tucked right down into the channel. So we went from jigging, it was like 14 foot to 30 foot overnight, and we were only probably 80 yards from where we were the day before.
Wow. Are you marking fish? Can you see them on your electronics?
Yeah, I'm running a live scope in the back of my boat, and I've hooked one or two with that today to have fish come up and chase the jig, but there's a lot of fish in here right now, so we're marking a lot.
I have yet to see that live scope in action on the water, but I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's I probably miss more fish watching it than I do actually catching them. So sometimes it's better not to even watch that screen, but it's like playing a video game with them.
So what size fish are you into today, Bobby?
So right now the fish that we've kept are probably all 16 to 20 inches. We haven't got any good ones yet. Hopefully they start biting later, or we might just have to go find a different spot to get some bigger fish. But right now, we are catching quite a few short fish. We're catching some under 15, but most of the ones that we've kept so far that we've chosen to keep is all from 16 to 20 inches.
So are you seeing fish of the same size school together, or not necessarily?
Yesterday we did. All the fish that we caught yesterday and the day before were all, for the most part, good fish. Today they kind of all seem to be about the same size down here. So every once in a while you'll luck into a big one, but for the most time, the last couple of days they've all been about the same size where we're getting them.
And are these river fish, are they constantly moving, or will they find a spot and hang there for a while?
Oh, they'll constantly move upstream. Spots will be good for a couple of days, and they'll slow down depending on traffic and if those fish head upstream. So my thing is, if you're not getting them, I would move.
And how has the boat traffic been out there the last few days?
The boat traffic the last couple of days wasn't bad with all the wind that we had. We had some really cold, windy days, so the traffic was low today. This is about the most traffic I've seen so far. So, and I think it's going to get busier today and tomorrow down here.
Oh yeah, we get a good, a nice weekend of weather here where the wind's not blowing during this what used to be a closed season. I think you're going to see a lot of boats down there. Yeah,
a lot of boats, and let's just hope that the weather doesn't turn for the worse and we can keep fishing it and the river improves every day.
And so what's the plan, Bobby, for you? Will you stay there in the river as long as you can and then turn your attention out to the bay?
So I will be doing a mixture between walleye and steelhead trips until the end of April. Then starting May 1st, I'm going to put my big boat in and start focusing on the bay. So right now I have a mixture between river walleye and river steelhead, which I don't mind. It's actually breaking up the steelhead season for me, so that's really nice.
And if we go to the website, icebreakerfishingcharters.com, do you have openings for this summer, Bobby?
Yes, I do. Yep, I have openings for just about everything. Weekends are kind of tough to book right now, but I do have a couple weekend dates left. But I do have availability for everything right now.
All right, Bobby, I appreciate the info. Good fishing. We'll talk again.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
I got one on right now.
There we go. Right at the end. The walleye whisperer's voice once again brings a fish. How big is he?
Oh, not very big. About 10 inches.
All right, Bobby.
Well, it was a fish.
It was a fish. Bobby Sullivan of Icebreaker Charters, icebreakerfishingcharters.com, icebreakerfishingcharters.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, biologist Jason Gostiaux talking about the science behind opening up this river during what used to be a spawning closure. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Suspension Max. When it was time to lift up the front end of my ZR2 from Garber, level it out a little bit, I knew where I was going. Suspension Max, suspensionmax.com. I've used them for, the last 4 or 5 trucks now. I like the way they get the body up, they level it out, plus it gives you room for bigger tires, and you know I love that. The website suspensionmax.com, and Max is MAXX, suspensionmax.com. We were talking with Captain Bobby Sullivan, who is out on the Saginaw River right now. We're talking to him about how to fish that river. This year, for the first time in a long time, the river will be open, the lower stretch of the Saginaw River, to walleye anglers. Jason Gostiaux is a biologist with the DNR to talk more about the science behind this. Jason, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to get out on that river. Let's talk more about this. What's the thinking, Jason? Why did you guys come to the conclusion that we no longer had to have what I used to think was a spawning closure?
Right. Absolutely. We can certainly entertain that, Mike. So a couple of things. Number one, the Saginaw River itself works as a migration corridor for walleye. So obviously fish are traveling from Saginaw Bay up through the Saginaw River into the primary tributaries, Tittabawassee, Shiawassee, Flint, Cass. That's where those fish are spawning. And so with the abundant walleye population that we have, everyone's experiencing that during the traditional summertime. But we feel that it's appropriate to open up additional opportunity for anglers during that traditional 5-week closure for that lower stretch of the Saginaw, and like I said, give folks an opportunity to have an extended season, primarily shore anglers, small boat anglers that might not have the resources or equipment to get out on the big water all year. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and I think the local and out-of-town anglers are really looking forward to it.
I do as well, and my question, there's a lot of anticipation is how big of a springtime fishery will this develop into? Any thoughts on that, Jason? Any insight?
Sure. I think, yeah, exactly. there's we have an estimated total walleye population somewhere in the neighborhood of, let's say, 6 to 8, perhaps more, 6 to 8 million, perhaps more walleye. And I think, as those fish, again, make their way into that migration corridor, they give folks a chance to capture them. Now, Mike, you have quite a bit of experience on the river, and others do as well. And oftentimes, there are days when you can go out there and really struggle to, not necessarily struggle to put fish in the boat, but put keeper fish, legal size fish in the boat. Oftentimes there's a lot of young walleye that don't meet the minimum length in that area, which is 13 inches. But, there will be days when there'll be pulses of fish that move in the system, larger females, large mature males that exceed that 13-inch minimum. I think there's going to be very good fishing. And we still have our traditional monitoring efforts. So we're going to have creel surveys, creel clerks out there at the locations. We have traditional assessment work done each year out in Saginaw Bay. So we're still going to keep our pulse on the population and how it handles this. But we feel that the abundant walleye population, we're confident that 5 weeks of additional opportunity, we're going to be okay.
You mentioned the small fish in the river. I've heard the river described, for lack of a better term, as a nursery for these small fish. Do the small fish tend to stay in there until they get bigger and then drop out to the bay?
Yeah, it does seem like we do have an abundance of young walleye, and I agree with you. I would also categorize the Saginaw River, Lower Saginaw, as kind of like a nursery grounds. There's good habitat. There's good food. You think of in the fall, you see big schools of gizzard shad and things. I think there's a lot of quality aspects of the Lower Saginaw that keep those younger fish holding there in that location. And granted, we still see young fish out in the bay, but like you said, you have their first stop may be the Lower Saginaw, where they grow a bit and then migrate to Saginaw Bay. And then, as I'm sure you've heard, there's even fish that will migrate out of Saginaw Bay into other parts of Lake Huron.
Yeah, it's quite a fishery. It's really grown into quite a fishery, hasn't it, Jason?
Absolutely. I think, the problem with Saginaw Bay, and I wouldn't call it a problem, the reason it plays second fiddle so often is how far you have to drive to go to what I consider to be the best walleye fishery in the world, and that's Lake Erie. They're only a couple hours apart. If you take Lake Erie out of the question, Saginaw Bay, bar none. I call it a world-class walleye fishery, but when you have the Golden Nugget just down the street, sometimes it just plays second fiddle, and I don't think that's a fair assessment.
Real quick before I let you go, is this opening more of an opportunity for recreation for anglers, or is it also a move to thin out that Saginaw Bay walleye population?
That's a really good, interesting comment, Mike. And like you said, this is primarily an opportunity-driven decision. We wanted to provide 5 more weeks for those anglers, whether they're from shore, small boats, large boats, a wide variety of methods, to be able to fish for and harvest walleye in that lower Saginaw. In 2015, when the regulation changes were more liberalized for Saginaw Bay and the lower Saginaw, one of those objectives was to, like you said, thin out the walleye, and that kind of got turned around a little bit.
Jason, hold on. Listen, I hate to interrupt you, but I've got to take a break here. Can you stick around for the second segment, and we'll talk more about this?
Oh, absolutely, Mike.
Oh, I appreciate that. We will offer Jason Gostiaux the second segment, which actually becomes the Ask Avery segment, but this time around, it'll be an Ask Jason segment. More with Jason Gostiaux of the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba, the Riviera of the North, on WCHT 600 AM 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends from Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Now, normally, actually, this works out very well. People, the Ask Avery segment is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. People send me questions they want me to answer, or they want me to pass along to somebody who knows a lot more than me this time around. And I get a lot of questions about the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery because people know I love that fishery. I have been an observer and an avid participant in that resource since it was reestablished many years ago. So this actually is perfect. Jason Gostiaux is a DNR fisheries biologist. Jason, before the break, we were starting to talk about this concept of thinning out the Saginaw Bay walleye population. That's why, maybe you guys went to the 8-fish, 13-inch size limit to help out the perch fishery. Is that still something you guys are looking at?
We're certainly keeping an eye on things with yellow perch and walleye. And like you said, back in 2015, more liberalized regulations, it was an attempt to, like you said, thin the herd a bit and see what manifests itself with perch. That's been in operation now for several years, and we just haven't seen the results on a large scale with yellow perch recovery, and I think that there are a lot of factors at play. Now, like you said, Mike, you recall a time when there weren't as many walleye out in the bay as there are today. And so I'd like to change the narrative just a bit, and instead of looking at this as too many walleye, I would rather characterize it as there are enough walleye now that we can open up this 5-week opportunity that previously was not being considered.
Fair enough. I'm all for having as many walleye as we can out there. Then if the liberalized regulations don't seem to have positively impact the perch fishery, are there thoughts of going back to the 5-fish, 15-inch limit?
There are thoughts about it, yeah. So we are right now in the middle of developing a new management plan for walleye and yellow perch in Saginaw Bay. As you spoke to earlier, there was a recovery plan that came about in the early 2000s, and there were recovery targets met in 2009, and that was sort of what got us here to where we are today with an abundant walleye population. And it's time to take another look and determine what are the objectives of the current status of walleye and yellow perch and lay out a framework for the future of the bay.
I feel like this Saginaw Bay walleye fishery is one resource that has been very well studied over the years.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a annual assessment work. I should say there are annual assessment surveys that happen in Saginaw Bay, and those occur in the fall, and they look at everything from the forage availability and biomass. They look at age 0 walleye all the way up through the adults and get estimates of relative abundance, population estimates. There's a long-term jaw tagging project that I'm sure you are aware of, and many of your listeners probably have received letters from capturing jaw tagged walleye and submitting those tags. It's a very, very intensely studied population, and we monitor it every year, and we will continue to do so. And that's where we feel confident that if things change drastically, we're able to identify that very quickly and move through the process of regulation change recommendations.
How is the forage base holding up? There was talk at one time of bringing in, what was it, smelled or something else? Jason, what's going on there?
Yeah, so there was a Cisco project,
yes.
A stocking strategy, that was developed that we're a few years into now, and the intent is to replace a once more abundant species with Cisco in Lake Huron, and that could act as a predation buffer between walleye and yellow perch. That, like I said, that project is a 10-year plan. We've had, I think it's 4 or 5 years of stocking, and we started to see some of those Cisco in the first iterations of that stocking strategy have returned to the stocking location. Last year in 2022, there was a large group of fish that came back to the stocking location there off of Whitestone Point, and it was very intriguing to start to see some of those results. And the hope is to carry on with this and then, develop a Cisco population that is reminiscent of previous years.
Well, Jason, as you well know, it's a wonderful, fantastic resource. I certainly enjoy it, as do a lot of other people, and I appreciate you joining us to bring us up to speed on this.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Enjoyed the conversation.
I did as well. Jason Gostiaux, a DNR Fisheries biologist, the website for the DNRmichigan.gov/DNR/DNR. And as always, a thank you to our friends at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Although this week it was an Ask Jason segment, but I think he had far more information than I could provide. What I was going to do was tell the story of how the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery was revitalized. You know, the walleye kind of crashed because of pollution and over-harvesting by commercial anglers, and then to watch it get rebuilt from the DNR, by the DNR and sportsmen's groups around the bay has been fascinating. There was a time when, well, I'll get into those stories some other time. Anyway, we'll take a break here for the top of the hour. I reminisce. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll change gears, change topics, and talk about turkey hunting with archery gear. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. That's right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, it is Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. And welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us. As I look out the window right now, the sun is shining. The red-winged blackbirds are singing. It feels like springtime. I know we got it's been a little bit chilly. The weekend's supposed to be cold, but next week is looking good. Next week is officially springtime too, right? And we're getting there. We're getting there. What do I look forward to about springtime? Well, I'm looking forward to a springtime bear hunt in Ontario with my buddy Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. Obviously, I'm looking forward to springtime walleye fishing, but I'm also looking forward to turkey season. I love turkey hunting. I don't pretend to be very good at it. You know, I'll luck into a bird now and then, but I sure I have a lot of fun. The way I hunt turkeys is different than a lot of people. I'd say probably most Michigan turkey hunters are using a shotgun, kind of a run and gun technique, where you're very mobile. When you hear a gobble, you can go to the bird, and then, if that doesn't work out, you pick up shop, pick up and move on to something else. Try to get birds gobbling. The way I hunt birds is, first of all, with a bow. I haven't hunted turkeys with a shotgun in years and years. I have nothing against it, nothing at all. I just like using archery gear, archery tackle. I've taken birds with a recurve, which was a real challenge. I've taken birds with a compound. And more recently, and this is what I'll use this spring when I go out there, a crossbow. I want to be proficient as I can, and I know I'm not going to spend the time to practice with certainly a recurve or even a compound as I should. And so a crossbow will allow me to have the best opportunity for making a quick, clean, humane killing shot, and I think I owe that to the birds. So what I do is I set up in my Wraith 270 see-through ground blind on properties that I know have birds. I will put a few decoys out in front of me, depending on the time of season. That'll determine the configuration of the deeks that I use. I'll make a few calls to see if I get a response, but mostly I'll just sit there and listen. And I will patiently wait the birds out. I got to be honest, that drives some hunters crazy. They can't take it, but that's the way that I like to hunt birds. The beauty of turkey hunting is there are so many different ways to do it. Charlie Wiltse is a guy who also loves to bow hunt for turkeys, and he's come up with some very interesting and productive ways as well. Charlie, in fact, is on the Primal Pro team, pro staff. You can learn more about Primal at their website, primaloutdoors.com. That's primaloutdoors.com. And Charlie's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Charlie, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. Great to be with you.
Always a pleasure. And this is a great time of year, isn't it?
It sure is. It sure is. We, us turkey hunters, we're starting to get ready. It's kind of been a late winter holding on, but it's going to break soon, and it's going to be game on, and nothing better than springtime turkey hunting.
All these birds we see flocked up right now, Charlie, will they be there when the season starts, or are they going to change their patterns and move?
Now, by the time Michigan first season starts there towards the end of April, Mike, there'll definitely be a big change. That flocking pattern will be over. They'll have their groups established. And then, of course, when them toms are really starting to go crazy, we all know what happens then. But, yeah, there'll be a big difference than it is right now.
So can we learn anything now? Can we do any scouting now, or is it just plain too early?
Well, it's never too early to scout. The big thing right now is you can take inventory. If it's whether it be it's on your hunting property or if it's, a neighboring property where you can, from the road use binoculars and start taking inventory of how many birds you have. But it's a great time right now to kind of see, and be able to get a feel for what type of population you have on your ground or your neighboring ground, for what turkeys you have for this upcoming hunt.
How much will birds travel? Will they move a couple of miles, or are they pretty much a homebody?
I pretty much think that turkeys, I would call them more of a homebody. They'll move around a little more. I would especially say when them toms are really really trying to get as many hens as possible. You know, they're going to move more. But for the most part, you know, they like to pretty much stay closer to home. But, you know, turkeys have a silly mind, and sometimes they'll surprise you. So I think depending upon the area, the geographical area, the feed that they have, the consistent food, you know, they're more likely to stay home. But they will also, I've seen them move, you know, quite long distances also.
I like the way you describe them as having a silly mind. I mean, they drive me crazy, Charlie. I can be driving down the road and have to stop to let 2 or 3 long-bearded strutters follow a hen across the road in front of me, and then that afternoon I'll go out and I can't hear a gobble. You know, these birds have nowhere to go and all day to get there, and they're the most intriguing and rewarding and frustrating bird at the same time.
Absolutely. You explained it perfectly. You know, someone that really who loves to hunt and hasn't really hunted turkeys much or at all, really needs to give it a chance, because like you said, you know, you could be driving down the road, all of a sudden you see a couple big old strutters just walking across, you're slowed right down, and then you can go out there and hunt them, and there is a lot of challenges. It's not easy. Turkey hunting is not easy, but it is once you do it, especially that when you kill your first time, or even if it's a Jake, I guarantee you're going to be hooked.
So if it's can be frustrating, and if it can be hard, even with a shotgun, why make it even worse by picking up a bow?
Good question. Just another thing, you know, guys, like I know, like you were saying, Mike, you know, you've been doing it for quite a few years now with archery equipment. It's just an added challenge for me. And I've been so fortunate to have a bow in my hand since I was about 8 years old, and I just absolutely love archery hunting. Had in my early 20s, I got into turkey hunting big time, kind of fell out of it a little bit. Now the last 7-8 years, I've really got back into it, and the last 3-4 years, really with my bow. It's just that added challenge, but yet also, you know, you're in the woods, and my bow is in my hand, and it's one of my happiest places to be.
Well, Charlie, I do not even pretend to have the knowledge or expertise or experience with turkeys that you do, but I did describe my style of hunting. How do you hunt birds with a bow?
Well, with a bow, I've got 2 different ways now. It's been 3 years now that Michigan has made it legal to turkey hunt, turkey hunt with your archery equipment in the air. So, I mean, you could also use a shotgun as well. So I've started to do that a little. I haven't conquered that yet, but that is my main goal for this year. So I will have a Primal aluminum Sky Spy, and I'll be up in the air. And I'm really excited to get my first turkey that way. And then, of course, kind of like you were saying, Mike, from the ground, I'll be in one of my Primal Rafts or Visions, and you've got that concealment, and then that's more of a deer hunt, and that does drive some people crazy. They just can't do it. But if you'd like to spend time out in the woods, if you know you've got turkeys around, I mean, it's a great way just to be out there, and then kind of like you said, Mike, do some random calling. One thing I think people forget is, you've got to spend some time out there. You got that early morning rush, they're coming off the roost. And a lot of people think, 9 o'clock, 9:30, well, we're going to go in and we'll maybe try again this afternoon. I guarantee you, if you start spending a little more time on stand, whether if you are doing archery in a blind or from a tree stand, or if you're just out there with a shotgun, you're going to start seeing that mid-morning, even midday gobblers. If you want to put the time in, it's a great time to shoot yourself a big old time.
Well, I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, it's a long sit. When you get out there before the sun comes up and you sit until noon that time of year, but I think I've taken more birds midday than I have first thing in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the last 5-6 years, some of the birds that I've killed, some of the birds that I've been with in a number of different states with other hunters, we've shot a majority of our turkeys the last 5 years between 9:30 and noon, and we've shot a couple turkeys at 1-2 in the afternoon. So it's just a matter of how much time you want to put in. But again, springtime's a great time to be out there. And I guarantee if you do a little more that midday hunting, you will definitely increase your chances.
Well, that brings up the question, Charlie, why do we get up so darn early? Why don't we just sleep in and go out there in the middle of the morning?
Well, if you're really not a real true good morning person, I guess you could do that. but the good thing about getting out there early, especially if you have been doing your scouting, doing your homework, you know typically where them birds are roosting, it is smart. If you definitely know where those birds are at, it's smart to be out there early.
Well, and you watch the woods come alive. You hear the birds gobbling on the roost. It gets your excitement level up. It sets the stage. It sets the scene for the morning hunt. We're talking with Charlie Wiltse of Primal Outdoors, the website primaloutdoors.com, primaloutdoors.com, talking about bow hunting for turkeys. And Charlie brought up the concept of hunting them from a tree stand. We got to follow up on that and more with Charlie Wiltse of Primal Outdoors, primaloutdoors.com, right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM and in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Michigan-based Whack 'em and Plack 'em, a very cool and unique way to show off your trophies. Use them for shoulder mounts, European mounts, even fish. For details, check out the website, nontypicalinnovations.com. That's nontypicalinnovations.com. So your big springtime walleye, your big springtime steelhead, maybe your turkey, the folks at Whack 'em and Plack 'em can take care of you. nontypicalinnovations.com. We're talking now with Charlie Wiltse of Primal Outdoors about turkey hunting here in Michigan in the springtime, primarily with archery gear. But Charlie, I got to ask you, you've had a chance to hunt birds all across the country. How does turkey hunting here in Michigan compare with other states?
Well, I would say it's really comparable to a lot of the states I hunt in. For example, this year I'll be in Nebraska, early chasing Merriam's, and that's an archery only. And then I'll be in Kentucky and also Ohio for their openers. And, I would say bird-wise, even the way the birds, move, obviously the trains are different. But, I think we're really fortunate to have good turkey numbers here in a lot of part of our great state. But I don't think it's really a lot different from state to state.
Have you seen turkey numbers here in Michigan and in other states? Are they starting to go down? I'm hearing a lot about that from biologists and hunters, too.
Well, actually, last year I really noticed I was starting to get some concern in Kentucky. Been hunting down there now 5 years for turkeys, and last year I noticed the numbers seemed to be dropping. Ohio, it seemed to me that the numbers possibly rising, but I'm hunting there in Northwest Ohio. Michigan here, where I hunt from the Thumb to the North Lansing area, Ogama County. I'd say things look still pretty steady. I would say I've seen a small drop the last couple of years, which I don't like to see, but nothing drastic as of right now.
Gotcha. Now, going back to hunting birds out of a tree stand, how are you going to set up for this? You're going to set up like you would for a whitetail hunting over a runway, or what?
Well, so basically, scouting. If you know where a current roost is, we always got to be smart when you're trying to hunt that roost. If you know where birds are hitting the roost, no one else is going to be boogering that up. Okay, figure yourself, if you can scout it, if you can see once they drop, if you kind of know their natural pattern, or of course, once they drop during season, if you can try to get one, to come your way, you want to stay back far enough. Find yourself a good tree. Try to get some that have some branches, so you're not just in the wide open. You want to get high enough in the air. You can still put your decoys out. Whether it be from a tree or from a ground blind. Again, using a bow, you've got to really be smart about how far you put them decoys out. I'm fortunate I get to hunt. I get to shoot 300 plus days a year, but you don't really want to have those decoys much farther than 10 to 13 yards or so, because we all know a lot of times in toms if they'll be coming in, they're committed. If they hold up on you, say if they hold up 5 to 10 yards outside of where your decoys are, if you're still comfortable at shooting 20 to 24, 25 yards, well, then you're still going to be able to get a shot with your bow. So you want to keep that decoy spread, close enough to you. Like I said, I like that 10 to 13 yard mark. And then another thing, Mike, that I really wanted to point out is I used to not use enough noise, whether it be some wing feathers, just taking some leaves and moving them, because them birds, they do hear that natural movement. So what I did since I started hunting up in a tree for turkeys, haven't done it a lot, but that's my main focus for this year. I take some leaves and I put them in a burlap bag, so I can be up in the tree and I can just slam my hands together, almost like you'd be taking, horns and you're trying to rattle in a buck. It gives some of that natural noise along with, if I have a tom that's being real active, if I do have to make a couple calls, don't want to overcall, kind of let them do the work and, make a call if you feel like you need to get him, bring him back. But if you feel like he's committing, just kind of let him come on as natural and don't overcall.
Whitetail will walk through the woods in Michigan looking up in trees for hunters. Do turkeys look up yet at this point? Are they looking for airborne predators like hawks and such, or do they just not even look up here because they haven't been hunted in Michigan that way yet?
Right. So what I've noticed the years now that I've been hunting out of the tree, and again, I haven't done it a lot, but when I have, the birds that I've seen, they do not look up into the trees. Now, if you've got birds coming and you're a little more open, and if you do have to make a couple of them calls to try to get their attention, well, that very easily could draw them up into the tree. But typically, they're not usually really looking up that much.
What do you like for broadheads for turkeys? Because I've found turkeys are surprisingly hard to put down. It takes a pretty good shot to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Broadhead-wise, so this spring I'll be using a G5 mechanical, mega meat, 125 grain. And another thing that I can't stress enough if you use an archery, just like any time we would be hunting any animal with our bow, we need to know exactly where we need to place that arrow to make that kill. These turkeys, it's upper chest. So you're going to want to go online. There's some really good articles online that will actually show you if, say, that tom's on the side, where to aim, if that tom's looking at you, where to aim, even if the tom's looking away from you, where to aim. But it's so important to know where you're aiming at. And then also, if you're very confident with your bow, that tom comes in, you're not shaking, you're rock steady, you feel really confident. If that turkey's close enough and you know where you can put that arrow, you pick that little spot, the base of the neck is a great shot. Now, Mike, I know we talked about, too, the neck. If you shoot enough, and they do make some broadheads that are, they're basically like 3 to 4 inches in diameter. Now, I've never used one of those, but I think if my main focus was to go for a neck shot, I would definitely practice enough with one of those to use it. But the base of the neck is also a very good location for a very quick, humane kill.
Well, and the good thing about that neck shot or the head shot is you've either got a dead bird or a clean miss.
Absolutely. It's either dead or, you still got a tag left.
I'll tell you one thing I did learn, though, Charlie, is, I had always heard about this so-called Texas heart shot on a turkey. When they're fanned out and they're looking away, if you aim for the spot where all those tail feathers come together. But I found out that actually that's not a good shot. In fact, I hit a bird with a recurve there a couple of years ago, thought it was a dead bird, and he wandered off. And I was talking to, Al Stewart, who was a real expert. He said, no. He said, that's actually not a good shot on a bird. And so I guess my point is, the thing about turkey hunting is I don't care how much you do it, you can always learn every time you go out.
Absolutely, 100%. Every time you go out, you can learn, and the more that you can take the time to educate yourself before you go out, like if you are thinking about getting into archery turkey hunting, spend some time. Go onto YouTube and Google. So there's some really smart people on there with some good videos. You can learn where those good placements are. Kind of like I was saying, keep your decoys close. In case you have a tom get held up. It's a great way to learn. But the more you can educate yourself before, and just being out there and learning too is the best way to go.
How many decoys do you put out, Charlie?
Early season. I'm usually starting with a tom fanned out. He's all ready to go, and then I'll have probably at least one hen, sometimes two hens. That's how I'll start off because typically that early season you're looking for a tom that he's going to see your decoy fanned out. He's going to say, no, this ain't happening. I'm coming in and I'm going to fight. And then you just got to kind of play it as the season goes on. If you still got your tag and, say here in Michigan, we got that late May season, things start to settle down, then either myself or if I'm hunting with someone else, we'll go to a point where we might run just a couple hens or run a Jake and a couple hens. So it kind of depends upon where you're at in the season and what you're seeing the birds are doing.
That's an interesting point on that full strut decoy. I've never used one of those, but I can see where that would really be. That could put a bird over the top and say, no, I got to come in and check this out.
Absolutely, and that's what I really like about that early season, Mike, because that's when these toms are, they know that's their fight mode. These are my girls. We're fight mode, but you really got to watch that because you're going to get to a certain point where some of them times then just get to it where, we've had our fill, we're ready to slow down a little. And if you keep that full fan still going, you're going to start pushing away some birds. So it's something that you got to really day-to-day keep an eye on.
Birds are famous for sneaking in behind us quiet. If they gobble, the best thing in the world is a gobbling bird because you know where they're coming in from. But when they sneak in behind you quiet or from the side, that has always been a problem for me. But now that they've come out with these see-through blinds, and again, I like the 270, when you can see them coming in, you can be ready for them, and that's a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. It's a game changer. Even if you're using, your typical, shotgun as a weapon, but especially with a bow, if, like for us, we're in our race or our vision from Primal Outdoors, you have time to get set up. You can move, get your shoulders right. If you're pulling back a bow or what have you, it is a complete game changer to be able to have that concealment.
I'm looking forward to trying that 360 remote camera on turkeys this spring. I've used it for bear hunting, and it was beneficial there, but I can really see where if you point it off to the side or behind your blind, birds aren't going to be sneaking in on you. I'm looking forward to trying that, Charlie.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question, Mike. The blind spot 360 from Primal Outdoors, just real quick, if you guys got to check this out, like Mike was saying, anything coming from behind, it's a real simple, it's not very expensive. It sends a Wi-Fi signal right to your phone. You can watch it from your phone. The camera pans 360, tilts 120 degrees. You guys, this thing is a game changer when it comes to any type of animal coming from behind, and it gives you time then to get prepared and ready to make that shot.
Charlie, always good talking to you. Good luck this season. Let's stay in touch.
Sounds great, Mike. Thank you. Always great talking to you, too. Have a great day.
You as well. Charlie Wiltse of Primal Outdoors, the website primaloutdoors.com. That's primaloutdoors.com. Yeah, check out that Blind Spot 360, the Wraith 270, the see-through blind that I love so much. Yeah, you can bet I'll be covered up with Primal products as I'm out there turkey hunting this spring. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, I will get back to this story I started earlier about the resurgence or the revitalization of the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery. And then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. That's right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us down the coastline in Saginaw on WSGW 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. I'm here with Charlie Rue doing a wonderful job as always. The crowds are starting to line up. The weather's starting to break. We're going to see more and more people here chanting, Charlie, Charlie. But for now, I mean, the crowd's a little thin. I can probably still I can get out of the parking lot with my truck. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Versa Skins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why spend a bunch of money on hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set of hunting clothes and snap on and zip on an outer liner of a different pattern? Blaze orange, snow camo, whatever you need. Save you a lot of money, good quality, warm, weather resistant, wind resistant. VersaSkins is the product, and the website is versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. I want to go back to the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery, a resource that I am very familiar with and I have observed and participated in that resource over the years. Walleye are native to Saginaw Bay, but back in the 40s, I think it was, the population crashed and was basically decimated by pollution and over-harvesting by commercial fishermen. They got the commercial fishing situation under control, and because of the water cleaning up and laws to limit what could be put in the water and agricultural runoff and stuff, the bay started to clean up. And the powers that be in the DNR said, you know what? And I think this was in the late 70s, early 80s, maybe mid-80s. Probably mid-80s we're talking here. They said, why don't we try to reintroduce walleye to Saginaw Bay? And the DNR and sportsmen's groups around the bay, including Saginaw Bay Walleye Club. There was a group out in Seaboing. There was a group up in Tawas area, Augrey. A lot of these just different sportsmen's groups teamed up with the DNR and created these walleye rearing ponds. So they would put the fry in the ponds to get them to a certain size and then let them go in the bay. And they had been doing that for several years, but fishermen weren't finding these fish, and it was getting a little bit frustrating for the DNR. So there was at one point, the DNR said, look, we know ththese fish are out here. The fishermen just haven't discovered them yet, and maybe don't even know how to fish them yet. So I remember one day we went out on the Coast Guard cutter, the 41-footer, up in the shallow water of Saginaw Bay with a commercial fisherman who was fishing for something else, and pulled up his trap nets in this shallow water, and they were absolutely full of walleye. And it's like, okay, this is proof. These fish are out here. So gradually over time, Saginaw Bay anglers discovered those fish, or should I say rediscovered those fish, and had to learn how to fish them. Early on, everything was big double skis run off the bow of your boat on a mast and Hottentots. And it took a while, but anglers discovered how to catch the fish, where to catch those fish. And those old Hottentots, off those big double skis, caught an awful lot of fish over the years. These days, of course, as technology has improved, as information has improved, the tactics, the techniques have changed, evolved. I'll tell you what, though, you can still catch Saginaw Bay walleye on Hottentots. But it's been fun and interesting and rewarding to see this fishery that was devastated, to have it be revitalized to the point where now biologists are saying, yeah, we can put more liberalized regulations on there, like they did back in 2015, making it an 8-fish, 13-inch size limit. I did find it very interesting that biologist Jason Gostiaux said, you know, that one of the reasons for doing that originally was to try to maybe thin out the walleye population a little bit to help the Saginaw Bay perch population. He said, we really haven't seen much of an effect or much of an impact on that. With that knowledge now, will we go back to a 5-fish, 15-inch limit? I don't know. Jason said it's under consideration, like so many other things are. But this walleye fishery now is so strong, so viable, so vibrant that you're seeing the Saginaw River now open during this 5-6 week period that was traditionally in the past I thought of as a spawning closure. Maybe I was looking at it inaccurately. And how many of the anglers that had been driving to the Detroit River this time of year and for the next few weeks to chase the trophy walleye down there, how many of them coming from upstate, heading downstate, will now stop on the Saginaw River? It'll be a closer drive for a lot of anglers. I don't think you'll see the numbers of trophy fish you do in the Detroit River, just because there's not the volume of water, and you don't have Lake St. Clair on one end and the Lake Erie on the other feeding it. But it has, it's our walleye fishing and our fishing in general, but our walleye fishing here specifically in Michigan is a world-class fishery, a world-class resource. Just like our steelhead fishing is, just like our salmon fishing is, just like our trout fishing is, just like our bass fishing is. Man, is everything perfect? Of course not. Could things be better? Of course they could. But when you look at our outdoor recreational opportunities we have, and many of them in the backyards of a lot of people close to the population, we are, in my opinion, very, very blessed. And I am so glad to live here. I am so glad to have my career be based in Michigan. I can't think of someplace else I'd rather live. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. So glad to have you along with us. And it's that time again. You know what I'm talking about. Time to wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, good friend of mine, big part of the Outdoor Magazine franchise. David, welcome back. How are you?
Very nice. Enjoying the sunshine, that's for sure.
Oh, isn't it nice to see? David, listen, I don't want to do a recipe this week. I want to talk about some other things, if you don't mind. Let's talk about this concept of cooking fish and wild game. Let's start from the beginning here. How did you get started in this? How many years have you been doing this?
Oh, man, I was like so short that I had to stand on a Coca-Cola box for my grandma to teach me her trade, you know. I mean, there was enough boys that Grandma was kept busy with all the squirrels and the muskrats and coons and anything else that we could get out of our farm and out of the creek that ran through us. And so, I don't know, I might have been 10, 12 years old learning how, on a wooden Coca-Cola box, I stood next to her stove.
Can any wild game or fish be cooked in a way that makes it enjoyable, or are some things just too nasty you can't even do anything with them?
Well, I haven't tried skunk yet, but I don't know if the meat would taste like the smell. I've had porcupine. I've had a lot of, almost every other thing you can think of. We've had mink, all kind of everything. But those are the only two that I've come across or haven't come across that I haven't been able to taste yet.
So,
and make or cook, or somebody else made it.
So what is the secret with cooking fish and wild game? Is it just like you'd cook cattle, beef, or is there a trick to it?
Oh, Mike, you got to start with when you take your shot. If you're deer hunting, say you take your shot, you make sure you want to take that last second. Don't get nervous. Take just that little bit to make sure that you're going to make a shot placement and that animal is going to be dispatched fast, humane. And the more you have to chase a deer through the woods, or the farther it runs, the more adrenaline is pumped into the system. And that makes for a little stronger flavor of meat. So that's the very first thing you want to do, is make your shot placement and dispatch the animal as humanly fast as possible. And with fish, there's the reason that people take coolers with them. They put the fish in the cooler to keep them out of the sun. That does nothing but dry it out, and it starts to actually prolong, start the deterioration process if you leave them laying out, say, just on the back of the boat or something. But you want to make sure you take an ice cooler and you ice your fish. Treat it like you would somebody else in a grocery store or a a fish shop or something like that. You see that fish on ice and it's treated nice, goes right out of the cooler, right into your wrapping, and then you take it home. Do the same thing with your own caught fish. Make sure that you don't allow it to get too warm, when it comes out of the water.
What about how much to cook wild game? I know I've told you the story before, and my mom's not listening, so I can say it. She would overcook venison, and I never liked it when I was a kid. You don't want to overcook it, right? Not just venison, but wild game in general.
That's true, whether it be elk or buffalo or mule deer, white-tailed deer. My thought is the more rare, like the tender stuff, you're going to put the more tender stuff between saran wrap or a bread wrapper, pound it down, break up the fibers so it's not going to pucker up. A lot of cuts of the venison, say, take that for example. If you don't pound it, it just keeps puckering and puckering, say like a goose breast too. If you go to saute a goose breast without pounding it down, if you butterfly it, and then what it does, it wants to draw up those fibers. Once they get hot, they want to pucker up and draw up like a mussel would do, And so my thought are, the more rare, unless you're going to make a stew or like a pot roast or something like that, the more rare you can eat a steak or medallions, the more flavor you're going to have, more tender, and it's just a lot more enjoyable all the way around.
How do you know when fish is done?
Well, Mike, say if you're going to put fish in on a barbecue, say you start your salmon skin side down or skin side up, and so when you flip it, then the skin side is down. And so after you think what is a reasonable time, maybe just a few minutes, you want to take a fork and see if you can flake that salmon fillet or that piece of salmon. And if you can flake it and you look down in there and it doesn't look opaque anymore, then that fish is done. Don't forget, fish, when it's cooked 3/4 of the way through, by the time it gets to who's ever going to dine on this piece of meat, it's going to cook through some more because of the residual heat that's left in the fish. It's going to finish cooking it. So I recommend cooking fish, whether it's in a pan or on a grill or like that, and you want to cook it just like medium well, and that's it, because by the time it gets to the diner, it's going to be fully cooked.
David, I appreciate that. I may follow up on this again next week because I've got a project in mind that you know about, so maybe we'll follow up on this next week. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. Appreciate you listening. Don't forget about our Wednesday Night Live coming up at the Lumberjack next week, 989-343-0892 for reservations. Don't forget about our Wednesday Night Lives, our Behind the Mic live streams. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. The email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Love to hear from you and love to talk with you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.